I mentioned earlier in my comments that partnership lay at the heart of CaPRI's creation. It also lies at the heart of our very operations. It wouldn't be possible for us to do the kind of research we do were it not for the fact that we benefit tremendously from a network of research associates and partner institutes, not only throughout the Caribbean, but indeed around the world. And one of the partner institutions which has been really, I can say, central to the very birth of CaPRI is the Inter-American Dialogue, what is probably the leading think tank in Washington on the Americas. Its president, Peter Hakim, sat on the founding advisory committee of CaPRI and really did help nurture the think tank into existence, and they've been strong supporters all along. PREAL has been one of the most successful initiatives undertaken by the Inter-American Dialogue, PREAL being the Partnership for Revitalization of Education in the Americas. They've had some very interesting experiences, research experiences and practical experience throughout the Americas, looking at ways in which they can improve the quality of education. And we thought it would be useful to us to take advantage of this partnership, and we asked them if they'd be interested in co-hosting this conference with us, and Jeff Puryear, on behalf of PREAL, very kindly agreed, and he is sitting here next to me today and is, as I say, co-hosting this with me. And what we intend to do is really sort of try and learn from the lessons, what has been done elsewhere, what has worked, in order to see what and how might we apply some of these lessons in Jamaica now that accountability has suddenly been thrust onto the national agenda just in the last couple of days. So what I thought we could do to get things going is we would invite Ruel Reid, who's no stranger to anybody here, to sort of frame the discussion for us, after which Jeff Puryear excuse me, would speak a bit about the experiences that PREAL has had in implementing this very concept, which is a very thorny one. So Ruel, I believe, is here at the... Yes, good. Okay, he sort of stepped in a few minutes late. Not that I'm chiding him for tardiness, but it is a... We at CaPRI pride ourselves on trying to start things as close to the official start time as possible. So you will see people continue to filter in throughout the course of the morning. And I know you all have a legitimate excuse today because the rains were heavy, and Mona Road, of course, becomes the Mona River every time we get a rain like that. However, nonetheless, Ruel Reid, who is an advisor to the Minister of Education, is particularly known, of course, for his principalship at Jamaica College, former president of the JTA, will frame the discussion for us in the Jamaican context. Ruel?
Thank you very much, Sir John Rapley, and to distinguished members of the head table, colleagues all present, good morning. Let me apologize for, as they say, nearer to church and farther away from God, but since I do wear so many hats, sometimes very difficult to be everywhere at the same time. The matter before us is quite a very interesting one for all of us. One of the great challenge I have this morning is how do I say all this in 10 minutes? I would have preferred probably an hour or so, but what I'm going to be doing, as I was asked, is to frame the discussion, put the issue of performance and accountability in education in context in the Jamaican reality. I just want to begin by making the point that whether, and even looking at the American experience, you did have what I call the evolution of education in America. In fact, even the professionalization of teaching. And looking at the Caribbean, Jamaica, no different. Mass education as we now have it did not evolve as a business. In fact, I recall it was a mission and very little emphasis on outcomes really apart from reading, writing, and moral and teaching. It began as a missionary intervention to teach moral education. As governments took over education systems globally, it was discovered that quality education, in fact, is extremely costly. The world's economy has changed, and education now demands increased accountability for expenditure, as well as higher levels of skills and certification by stakeholders. Therefore, the Task Force Report 2004 spoke to the gross underfunding and also lack of accountability in education in Jamaica. The culture of performance management was also never pervasive among public sector bodies or the public sector globally. And therefore, education as part of the public sector also suffered from that. As best practices were achieved in the private sector, an international thrust to modernize the public sector emerged. And the modernization, or the attempted modernization of our public sectors, placed emphasis on greater levels of efficiency, increased productivity, and more value for money. In terms of best practices, there is a recognition that to achieve the highest levels of performance and productivity, there is need for alignment in the recruitment of high-quality professionals and resources with an emphasis on accountability for performance. This is what the current transformation of the education system is all about. And so I thought it was important to look how far we have come, because all what we are reaping is many years without putting a comprehensive performance management system in place. Because much of the discussion has to center on a definition of performance management. And so you see the role of the teacher, the student, and the government in that particular context. Because performance management has to be defined as a process of creating a work environment or a setting in which people are empowered to perform to the best of their abilities. Performance management, as I will define, is a whole system that begins when the job is defined as needed and ends when an employee leaves the organization. So in creating a high performance management process, the goal is to hire and to keep the best people. And with the best people, one can develop and manage performance to focus critical contribution on accomplishing one purpose. So I put that because what I'm trying to do is, since performance and accountability is something we are literally taking from the private sector, if we could juxtapose and put the education system in that and see where the gaps have been, and because we're going to correct that, we have to have that realignment. And in looking at the Jamaican reality, I mean, look at, and I know it's much is recent research in terms of the importance of early childhood education. But the teacher will very argue that if in the private sector, your resource quality or your raw material that you get is very important in terms of your final outcome, then if we had a weak early childhood with the majority of students leaving the early childhood into primary, we're not ready. And then even in the primary, by looking at how the system was structured into a large class, as was said by Dr. Hillard before, and all of that, all those things would impact on performance and outcomes.